I'm with Christopher Zinn, who's one of the enablers of what is a consumer revolution, and I know one of your interests is in that demographic of 50 and above, so the 50 and above club. So tell us a bit about what that club's all about.
Yeah, well, being over 50 now, I do have a vested interest in that. I mean, the 50 Up Club was born from one big switch. And it's essentially the idea that those of us who are older actually can be better customers in terms of insurances with low risk, in terms of payments history, maybe more reliable, maybe more to time. In terms of any number of ways, the 50 ups, and remember we're talking about a group of people, the boomers, there's been massive asset appreciation. Some of them are pretty well heeled. We think that they're desirable customers. So the idea was, one, you get a group of people together. Two, you make available to them certain club-only offers from electricity, from life insurance. Again, ones that are not necessarily available on market, but might be attractive to them. But then the other part of that is, get them to lobby for change. So, for example, recently, I've been doing quite a lot around pensions and superannuation. I've learned a lot about pensions I never thought I'd have to learn. But it's this particular group, they were the pension and retirement incomes was absolutely really at the heart of the change of the budget. And in so many ways going forward, given some of the costs and the savings and the controversy around super and taxes and all of this, it's going to be about them. And I'd say to the 50 ups, look, guys, we've got to use our power around this. One, so we can get what we need or what we want, but actually also so that we don't lose what we deserve. Now, I'm not making value judgments because the group votes in different ways, and I'm not saying that super need never be touched or that pensions or whatever. But the point is that they need to speak and they need to make their mind known. And of course, voting every 3 years in a federal election doesn't actually do this. It's a very powerful bloc. I'd suggest that there's some fascinating things that we can do with them.
So one of the things I thought was interesting in the work that you've done recently is that, a reasonably big survey of nearly 13,000 people and asking the question about the impact of low interest rates and talking about the fact that, as an economic stimulus, yes, having low rates is good, but it's had a very negative impact on self-funded retirees and others in that cohort. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, and as they said, we're hurting. These are people, and the comments were fascinating. There's one thing filling in the survey, but there are hundreds of comments, and they were really interesting. And the thing that came through loud and clear, we feel we've done the right thing all of our lives. We've made provision not to be on the pension to self-fund ourselves, but actually we now find ourselves in an environment where the RBA keeps pushing down the cash rates, perhaps for very good reasons in terms of the national interest, but our interests are really dashed. And I think when they see, in the popular media all the time, or the Treasurer saying this is fantastic for Australia, they just want to say, actually, it's not fantastic for us. And we are a key part. So look, monetary policy might play its part, but again, these things are all mixed up with this whole retirement income strategy. And there's more and more of us who are moving into that area, and the amount of money involved is absolutely massive, and the potential cost to the public purse as well. So there's so many balances, and again, they can see that we've got a split in terms of Labor and the coalition around super, what should or shouldn't happen, pensions, it's not integrated. And I think there is great disquiet and uncertainty when, of course, the whole point when you get there is that you actually do want some certainty, as much as is possible in the world.
And I suppose one of the things that interests me about those comments, and as you say, there's voluminous amounts of them, is, does that speak to potentially a misunderstanding of the risk-return trade-off? So that the idea that if you have the majority of your assets in something that's very safe, like cash, that actually there is embedded risk in having a strategy that doesn't have a lot of diversification in it. So it sort of links to some of the work that you're doing with, advisor ratings and encouraging.
Yeah, and financial literacy, or I prefer to call it financial fluency, because it's a language we need to speak as opposed to something. But certainly some stuff which ASIC did recently around people's appreciation of rate and return, risk and return, was absolutely, mind-numbing, because a lot of people don't get it. And even those who say they do, when you test them, actually don't. So yeah, the problem for older people is that they thought that they could be in fairly low risk, stable return products. That's not the case anymore. And as Glenn Stevens has said, you actually have to take more risk now. Well, to do that, you actually have to seek advice, if you've got any sense anyway. And it goes back to that question, how can I find an advisor who I can use? Because a lot of those people actually won't have an advisor. So they are, some of them, sitting ducks for some of the more predatory operators out there. And again, one of the other things in that financial literacy survey was about diversification. I mean, I would have thought one of the most basic, simple concepts, don't put all your eggs in one basket. However, we see time and time again, people, for whatever reason, ignoring that age-old advice.
So I think, I certainly took out of that it's important that, regardless of the stage that you're at, that, having some help and getting some advice probably makes sense for many people. And, what I like about the Advisor Ratings Project is that it gives people an opportunity to do their own research and hopefully find the right fit for them.
Look, what we're working towards is on the Advisor Ratings platform that you can actually find information there to G yourself up of what you need to know. So the more you need to know, the more you know before you see an advisor, then actually that saves them time and you money, and then you can actually do more interesting things that perhaps create more value. So, you're not going to elementary school, you're starting in second or third grade or even higher or whatever. So there's that kind of information provision, but it is also finding the kind of advisor who can help you. And maybe you just need some scaled advice, some quite simple, straightforward thing. You don't need, certainly if you're older, you don't need the full, kind of work that an advisor would do for a younger family.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's fantastic advice. So thank you very much, Christopher.
My pleasure.